Hi, I'm Glenn Southern, I'm the Aroid Artist here on YouTube, and today we're going to take a look at this, which is a Manjula Pothos, or a Manjula Epipremnum. I've got two of these, or I've actually got about six, but I've got two main plants, and one of them is this one that I'm growing up a pole. So all I want to do today is just take it off this little stick pole and put it onto a proper pole, and I'll explain why I want to do that as we go through the repot. So join me and we'll repot this little Manjula. So this is, it's quite a healthy, fairly young Manjula Pothos. Manjula, so it's Epipremnum aureum Manjula. So it's a variety of Epipremnum, and it was sold to me just as a Manjula. There's two types that you hear about a lot. There's two, well, there's more if you include one called a harlequin, but you've got one called just happy leaf. And I have no idea why it's called happy leaf, or in fact even what it is. But it seems to be less of these dark kind of segregated areas or sectoral areas. And this one was just sold to me as a Manjula. It's got the classic curly leaves. It's got the classic coloration, which is this variegated sectoral patches, as I say. Some of the leaves still do look like if you look at these down here, you've got these at the bottom look very much like a marble queen, but most of all it's this curly leaf shape that really defines the look of the Manjula, or how you can spot that it is a Manjula. So this particular one that we've got here has been grown in leca, and it has rooted out, so the roots are popping out of the bottom of the pot. But I wouldn't normally repot it at this stage. But what I'm struggling with is I can't get it to grow aerial roots onto this pole. So I want to put it onto something it can grab onto a little bit more substantial, and that I can also extend. So with this normal traditional moss pole, I can cut the top off there and extend it up, whereas this stick has kind of not really proved its worth. So I'm going to strip it off, take all of the supports off it and have a look at it, and then what we'll do is we'll see if we can get the moss pole into the leca and see how that goes for us. So let's have a try at that. The first thing I'm going to do is start to unpeel it from the pole. So I just used cable ties for this, because I take them on and off, and I move them around quite a lot. So there shouldn't be any major problems in just untying the ties, as you can see me doing now, and we can bring this off completely. Now it's quite healthy, it's not going to damage it. There are one or two really nice aerial roots, as you can see, but overall it's not really doing any major damage just pulling it away like that. All of the other ones, there are a couple that have got some leaf damage on them, and that I think is when I fed it. So back in the summer, I might just pull this one out actually, because I'm going to pull that one away. It got some kind of burn when I overfed it, and I think that's one of the things you've got to be careful of with leca, is not to give it too much feed. You go in the first 6 months, really go less than half strength, if not a third, and I always try and do that when I'm going into leca. So what I'll do now is I will pull it out, and we'll start to drop out the leca, and we'll see what we've got in the way of the individual little plants. So let me try and make some space on the desk, and what we'll do is we'll pour it into another pot. So I've got a pot here, and what we'll do is we'll pour the leca in, and then we'll have a look at each plant as we get to it. So let's just see what happens, and hopefully you can see that on this camera. We're just pouring the leca in as much as we can, bit by bit. In fact, let's do a different way now. Let's try and pull it up a little bit next. So we'll pull this pole out. That's one good start there. So we've got the pole away, and now what we want to do is slowly go around and see how many of these are loose and how many of them I've got. In fact, none of them are loose, which just shows how healthy this plant is. They've all seem to have grabbed onto something, so that's not going to work either. So it's again a case of just working through it slowly but surely and working out what you can and can't do and get out. So I'm going to keep tipping the leca out bit by bit without damaging the plant. Be a bit noisy and a bit messy, which is always the problem, so you're going to get leca everywhere doing this. What you'll find is with a plant like this, a lot of the leca will be stuck to the roots once we get down to that level. So a bit of a tap now and it's starting to come. There's actually not just leca in here, which I didn't realise, so there's actually pon in here as well. So that makes it even. That's exactly why I've got a problem. And that's really interesting because I don't even remember doing that. So the leca is decorative on the top, and the rest of the plant, let me just show you on the other camera. There we go. And the rest of the plant is surrounded by, as you can see, pon. So, and pon is another. It's you know, it's like leca in the fact that it's you know, it's non-organic, and I've got videos on both leca and pon if you want to take a look at those. But it's obviously, there you go. Look how healthy that is. That, hopefully you can see that on the camera. That's, the root system is dry as a bone. It's not dry as a bone. I mean, it's not mushy at all. So it's not got any root rot whatsoever, and that's why I do love leca. So there's one that looks quite healthy. Put him on the side. Take the next one, and they're very, very bushy. So really happy with the way these are growing together. Could split these out to separate plants easily. They would make lovely separate plants, but I really don't want to. I want this to be one big, you know, healthy growing Manjula. And not many people, or you don't see many people growing their Manjula up. They mostly grow them as a trailing plant, but they do grow really well if you can, if you can get them to hook onto something that they're happy on. Then they will go up. They'll certainly go along instead of bushing. You'll see they trail like this along the floor until they find something to go up. That's a really healthy. That's a really healthy plant there altogether. And smell test, absolutely beautiful, just like fresh. In fact, it actually smells a bit like soil, which is, you know, that's the kind of thing that you want. So there isn't any soil in this, but it's got that smell of that fresh smell. So in here I've got a wick, and I've actually pulled the wick through on one side. So I'm going to put the wick back. So this is basically how I let the plant pull its own liquid, like the soil, sorry, the water and the nutrients up. So it uses this wick system, because I don't always have the water up here, and that's how it pulls the water up as it needs it. So we'll put some of the leca back in, and then pull the wick back through, so that the wick is definitely up. Oops, come out again. Let me put it in again. So then the wick is up in the middle of the substrate, which is quite useful. You can see it there, so that will always be damp in the middle, and the roots will go for that. So that's a great start with that one. There's lots of leca everywhere now, so leca and pon everywhere. So I've been experimenting for such a long time with pon and leca now. I have no, as I said in my videos, I don't have one particular system that I'll stick to. What I'll do is I'll try it per plant and see what works and what's working and what isn't working. So in this case I must have started it in pon, and then I must have just put decorative leca on the top. So for now I'm going to put the moss pole in the centre like so, quite far down as you can see, and then I'm just going to get it a bit stable, and then I'm going to start putting in some of the plants. So I want them all to go up it, so I'll get the roots layered down first. So remember, there was leca in there, there was pon in there already, so we're absolutely fine just to get on and put them back, and the next layer of leca will all solidify basically stabilize these. Now this is the big one, So this is the one that's gonna have to come up and around the moss pole. So I'm gonna layer in the roots again to make sure at least some of them are right down at the bottom. And that'll mean that it's not gonna miss out on the water as it settles in again. So I haven't had this out since I put it in. Obviously I'd forgotten, as you can tell. I'd even forgotten that it had pon in there. So we've got that one down deep into the pot, and another one which is just a single one. We'll keep that near to the pole so that can get up the pole when we want it to. And then this nice big one here, we'll layer this one in, and that can get up the pole as well. And that, I think, is it. That's all. Oh no, there's one more. So hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. And then one more, this one. We'll get this one in right on this edge over here. And that'll add another additional climber on this side. And now we'll just get some of this back in and give it a tap. So I'll get some in that side and some in that side. And then what we want to do, it's going to be a bit noisy, we just want to give it, might even be a bit wobbly if the camera gets hit. Now I just want it to bed down now. So this, you know, you can't pack this like you do soil quite as easily. So there you go, we've got that first layer in quite nicely. Get a bit more in. And then give it another tap. Basically we want to start seeing this pole stabilise a little bit, and now we can push it down around that pole like so. And that's worked really well. Not quite as stable as I want it, but that will do. So once we've got that to that level, we're going to have to, we can't use the ties anymore. So what I'll do is I'll use this, which is garden twine. So I'll just cut a few pieces of this ready, and then what we'll do is we'll start picking the bits that we want to, the strands that we want to tie up, and even strands that weren't, stems that weren't tied up last time, we will make sure that they can reach the pole this time, like this one that I've just done here. So that one's quite close to the pole already. Turn it round so we can see. And what we're really after is getting this big one in. So this big one here, as you can see, this is the one that's got to come up. And I've got to work out a way to get him up, like so. And I want the aerial roots to be touching where I can onto the side of the moss pole so that they really dig into it. And I think that is pretty much how I'll layer it. Hopefully you can see that. And that's got all of the aerial roots are quite close to it now. So what I'll do is I'll tie it off at that point. So we'll go quite high on the tie there, and we'll just loosely tie it for now. And obviously don't pull it too tight so that it damages the petiole. You don't want any damage going on there. And I don't put bows or anything on, I just snip them as tight as I can, and that will hold that one quite nicely in place. Now what will happen there is, unlike the other one, these aerial roots here, now you can see these will now grab on and basically embed into the moss pole. So I'll keep the moss pole relatively damp, and I'm almost sure that we'll see some quite strong growth quite quickly because of that. Now what I'm going to do is just put another tie in here, and I'm going to grab some of these other ones and actually bring them tight to the pole. And what that will do is that will force it to start making more aerial roots, and they will attach as well. So wherever possible I want it really tight to the pole, and once they feel they're on something and they've got something to grab onto, the aerial roots come, and I find that they do take a lot quicker and a lot better. So So let me just hold that up for you a bit closer so you can see it. You can see it tied there at the bottom and tied there at the top. Now it doesn't look a tremendous amount different, and it's not completely stable yet, so there will be a bit more settling to do. That's better. We can get some settling of the leca. There might be a point when I water it, or get the water back up to the level that I like, then it might settle the leca a bit more, and then it'll be a bit more stable at that point. So you just can't get a stability in leca like you can in soil. There isn't any of the the rigidity of the soil, and that's the reason why these plants do so well in leca. It's because the soil isn't compacted. The leca isn't compacted like soil, and that definitely has that definitely has its benefits. So that's that one repotted now. So we can expect that to just, it is the middle of, it's middle of November now, or towards the end of November, and you can see outside it's only the early evening and it's pitch black. But what will happen is when the new growth starts in the new year, so probably once it just warms up a little bit, this will take a sudden leap in growth, and at that point I'll chop this off here, so just the kind of webbing, and just leave the plastic, and then I'll stick in another one, and we'll get probably, by the end of the season, by the end of next year, I expect this to be well up the pole, and it'll make a lovely plant. So it's not like all of my other manjulas that I've talked about, and or not so many manjulas now, but most of these I would trail or grow as like a more bushy affair. But with this one, I really want to go for a really nice tall, growing, up a pole kind of plant. Let's see how that one gets on. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please give it a thumbs up. It does help me get in front of other plant enthusiasts who might like this kind of content. And if you're liking this kind of content, then please subscribe, because I want to start building the channel and get my videos in front of more people like your good self. Thank you so much for taking a look, and have a great week.